Hello everybody. Today we're going to discuss a little bit about local and global variables. Now, what I have here currently is just a single method with a local variable defined, and then I print it, right? It's called prints. And I'm just going to run it one time. And when I run that, you'll see 9,000, hello 9,000. Now if I try to print the local variable here, you'll see it crashes very quickly because it says it's not defined. Now, a local variable is a variable that's defined in a certain scope. Just so you know the word scope, scope means where you define something matters. So if I define something here, for example, it exists only here inside this method or function. Once I leave this function, it doesn't exist anymore. Now, there's a couple of ways around that. One, I could define it at a higher scope. Example, if I define it here, for example, and I run, it works because it's a global variable now, officially. This exists higher than everything else. So even though I'm inside this function, it can look up and see this. If I make it to, down here to my lower part of the code, it can look up and see that it exists. It doesn't exist inside of anything. So global would be typically defined at the top, and local would be something defined, for example, here. Now, there is a key word in Python called global, but typically you're not going to define anything. Usually it's, if I remember correctly, it should be something like this. Like that, I think. And you can force it to be global even though it's local. Honestly, just personally, I kind of prefer, if it's going to be global, put them all in the little global area where it needs to be in. That's generally going to be the better way to go. There we go. So if you want it local, it's going to be defined inside of an if statement, a loop, or a function. If it's going to be global, define it at the very top above everything else, and everything below can see it. That's typically how that works. Now, a local variable also, if I define a variable here, again, it only exists here. So even if I make changes to, let's say if I have one variable here, var1 equals 5, and then I have one that's var1 equals 10, well, these are two separate variables. They're not the same. This is var1, it's local to this. This var1 is local to this area here. So there is a little bit of difference depending on where you define stuff. Nothing much is really going to happen when I run this, but as you can see, I'm not using any of them. But this is separate from this one here. Whereas this one, every single function, every single thing inside this code can see what that variable is. And that's kind of a rough rundown of global variables.